It was a cold winter night in 1980 when tragedy struck the small town of Millfield. Robin Brooks, a young woman who had been out with friends, was found dead in a nearby field. Her body had been brutally raped and murdered, leaving the community in shock and mourning. For years, the case remained unsolved, with no leads or suspects. But now, more than 40 years later, justice may finally be served. The man accused of the heinous crime is facing a jury for the first time, bringing the case back into the public eye and reigniting the emotions of those who knew Robin and were impacted by her death. Hello and welcome to Dark Secrets, your channel dedicated to exploring some of the most fascinating and haunting crimes in American history. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out. The small town of Millfield was never the same after the murder of Robin Brooks. She was a young woman full of life and potential, taken too soon by a brutal act of violence. For years, her case remained cold, with no leads or suspects. But now, more than 40 years later, a trial has begun, and the accused is finally facing justice. The man accused of Robin's murder is a mystery, a shadowy figure lurking in the background of the case. Few details have emerged about him, leaving the public to wonder who he could be and what his motives might have been. Was he a stranger, passing through town and seizing an opportunity? Or was he someone Robin knew, someone she trusted, who betrayed her in the worst possible way? As for Robin herself, she was a popular young woman, well-liked by her peers and known for her vibrant personality. But beneath the surface, there may have been more to her story. Whispers have circulated about her possible involvement in some questionable activities, leading some to wonder if her death was related to something more sinister. The events that led up to the murder of Robin Brooks are shrouded in mystery, leaving the small town of Millfield on edge and wondering what really happened that fateful night. Some say that Robin had been out with friends, celebrating a recent success. Others whisper that she was up to no good, engaging in illicit activities that may have put her in danger. Regardless of what led her to that field, the fact remains that she was brutally raped and murdered, leaving the community in shock and mourning. Rumors have circulated about a shadowy figure, someone who may have been watching Robin that night, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. But no one knows for sure who this person might be, or what his or her motives could have been. The investigation that followed Robin's death was thorough, with police canvassing the area and interviewing everyone who might have had information about the case. But despite their efforts, no leads emerged, and the case went cold. The investigation into the murder of Robin Brooks yielded a wealth of evidence, much of it shrouded in mystery and intrigue. From the blood-stained clothing recovered at the scene to the DNA evidence collected years later, each piece of evidence seemed to bring more questions than answers. The investigation into the murder of Robin Brooks was a challenging one. The killer had left few clues behind, and for decades, law enforcement had hit a dead end. But just like the Golden State Killer, there was hope that the perpetrator would one day be caught. In 2018, former police officer Joseph James D'Angelo was arrested for the Golden State Killer murders, thanks to the use of advanced forensic techniques. And now, law enforcement was using those same techniques to solve the murder of Robin Brooks. Sacramento County District Attorney Anne Marie Schubert spoke of the successful union between science and dedicated police work during a press conference. She revealed that Philip Wilson had been charged in a felony complaint in Sacramento County with the rape and murder of Brooks. The details of Robin Brooks's final moments are shrouded in mystery and intrigue, leaving investigators and the community alike searching for answers. Brooks had only recently moved to Sacramento, following her sister to the West Coast just 6 months before her death. She worked the late shift at donut time, leaving just after midnight on April 24, 1980. As she walked the short distance to her apartment at the Garden Club Apartments, Brooks joked with coworkers about having to make her bed before crawling into it. Little did she know that she would never make it to her bed. Authorities discovered Brooks face down on her waterbed in a pool of bloody water, the mattress punctured by the knife that killed her. She had been stabbed 5 times, including a wound that pierced her heart. Her killer left his semen inside her body, his fingerprints on the windowsill, and smears of his blood on the walls of the apartment. Despite the abundance of evidence, authorities were unable to identify the killer for over 40 years. The suspect had cut himself during the assault, leaving behind a DNA profile that was later uploaded to the Combined DNA Index System (CODIS) database. But no match was made until recently, when a new piece of evidence emerged that led investigators to a man named Wilson. Wilson has vehemently denied any involvement in Brooks's death, but the evidence against him seems overwhelming. Investigators scoured the area, collecting every scrap of evidence they could find. Tire tracks were photographed, footprints were dusted for prints, and fibers were carefully collected from the scene. But despite their efforts, nothing seemed to point to a clear suspect. Years passed, and the case went cold, until a new piece of evidence emerged. DNA evidence collected from the scene was retested, and a match was found. But even with this breakthrough, questions remained about how the DNA got there, and whether it was the result of contamination or deliberate planting. As the trial of the accused continues, prosecutors are using the evidence gathered over the years to build their case. But defense attorneys are quick to point out the flaws and inconsistencies in the evidence, leaving the community wondering who to believe and what really happened that night. Exactly 40 years later, on April 24, 2020, investigators on the case announced the arrest of Wilson, who was detained at his North Sacramento home. The news of Wilson's detention sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community of North Sacramento where he lived. The 73-year-old was found guilty of murder, with the special circumstance of rape. The trial was intense, and the Sacramento County jury deadlocked on the charges initially, but eventually returned the verdict. Wilson's attorney argued that his client had consensual sex with Brooks, but she was killed by her sister's boyfriend, who had since passed away. The defense had a different theory. They claimed that the accused, Philip Wilson, was innocent and that the real killer was someone else entirely. They pointed the finger at Brooks's sister's then-boyfriend, Norbert Holston, who had passed away since the crime occurred. The defense team argued that Holston had a motive and opportunity to commit the murder. They presented evidence that the week before the murder, Holston and Brooks had a heated argument where he threatened to harm both sisters and their pet dog. The public defender claimed that the prosecution had tunnel vision in their pursuit of Wilson, and they failed to consider other potential suspects. But with the DNA evidence and fingerprints pointing to Wilson, the jury had a difficult decision to make. The courtroom was filled with emotion as Brooks's sister, Maria Eric, wept with joy at the jury's decision. After 40 long years, justice had finally been served. But the story doesn't end there. As Wilson was led away in handcuffs, his eyes burned with an intense fire, and the faintest of smirks played across his lips. Was he truly guilty of the crime, or was there something more to this case? Many in the community are still wondering if the full truth of what happened that fateful night will ever be revealed. To add to the mystery, Wilson's conviction came on his birthday. Was it a coincidence or a twisted sense of fate? Only time will tell, but the memory of Robin Brooks will continue to haunt the town of Sacramento for years to come. Thank you for watching this video. We would like to read your own speculations in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe.